In terms of objectivist principles, an AGI, I believe, would come up with very much objectivist principles.
Without Ayn Rand?
Yes.
Yeah, see, that's where I don't...
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
why I just don't see that at all, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
But how? Peter Voss, welcome to the Troubadour channel. I wanted to bring you on to talk about something that I have started to fall in love with over the last couple of years. It's become a big part of my life in a new way. And I think I have an interesting approach to understanding this as someone who is completely ignorant of it. And that is artificial intelligence. And specifically with you, artificial general intelligence.
Right.
So I want to bring you on, but I first want to read a quick little bio of who you are so people get a sense of who you are. So you're one of the pioneers in artificial intelligence. You and a few colleagues coined the term artificial general intelligence, AGI. 20 years you've been studying what intelligence is, how it develops in humans, and the current state of AI. This research culminated in the creation of our natural, this is at your company, aigo, AIGO, of our natural language intelligence engine that can think, learn, and reason, and adapt to and grow with the user. Currently focusing on commercializing the second generation of our most advanced conversational AI technology. That's aigo, AIGO. And you can visit aigo.ai for lots of blogs and white papers on this there. Now, aigo is the most advanced natural language interaction platform built on human brain-like cognitive architecture. I'm very interested in that. aigo.ai is on a mission to provide highly intelligent and hyper-personalized assistance for everyone. Okay, so let's dig into that a little bit. I just want to get started with you and your background more and how you got into AI, its origins for you, and moving into AGI.
Yes, sure. So I started out as an electronics engineer and started my own industrial electronics company. And then I fell in love with software, and my company very quickly turned into a software company. I developed an ERP software package, and that was quite successful. We went from the garage to 400 people and did an IPO. So that was exciting.
Yeah.
But it's when I exited that company, I sort of thought, well, what is missing in software? And I realized that software really doesn't have intelligence by itself. It doesn't have common sense. It can't learn. It can't adjust, adapt to new circumstances. So if the programmer doesn't think of some scenario, it'll just crash or give you an error message or do something silly.
I see.
So that really started me on the mission of how can we build systems that can think and learn and reason the way humans do.
Okay, so you started with, so you've been in software a long time, you did ERP. I actually sold ERP for a very short period of time. I sold NetSuite.
Okay.
And so, in our conversation today, I'm really hoping we can dig into, this from a different approach. Like I have no technical background. I have no software except for selling it a little bit.
Right.
I don't have training in computer science, anything. I'm purely interested in this thing keeps falling down. Purely interested in the human consciousness, education, literature. So at the Troubadour channel, we do something called the Literary Canon Club, where we read through the canonical works of great literature from Homer to Melville. Right. Rand, although I leave Rand for the people at the Ayn Rand Institute. But that's so I'm coming at it from poetry, from literature, from art, and what they teach us, and also what I think they teach us about the mind and about life and human existence and things like that. And so I'm interested in the claims that you and other AI and AGI people have made, are making, and how those claims have changed. And that's just my own personal, interest in it. And so first I wanted to get started with the distinguishing factors and ideas behind AGI and AI, just to kind of set the context of what is AGI, what is AI. So now the world was introduced to AI really, I think, in a real way with ChatGPT. I use ChatGPT. I have ChatGPT right here with questions that, I work with it all the time.
Right.
And to me, it's a great tool. It's another wonderful tool.
Right.
And my perspective is that's pretty much all AI will ever be, is a tool. But I feel like AGI and this, human consciousness may have a different perspective, that it may be able to do what humans do.
Yes, absolutely. So I think it's a very important distinction between AI and AGI. And it's kind of a full circle, because when the term AI was coined some 69 years ago, actually, the idea was really to build thinking machines that can think, learn, and reason the way humans do, and, would be able to do purposeful things, achieve goals, and so on. Now, they originally thought they could crack this problem within a year or two.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right. You got to like the cockiness.
And of course, it turned out to be much, much, much harder.
Yeah.
So what happened, the field of AI really lost its vision over the decades, and that the field of AI turned into narrow AI, where you take one particular problem that seems to require intelligence, such as playing chess, or container optimization, or something of that nature. But it's in the human intelligence that actually solves the problem. It's not the intelligence in the system per se. Sure. So, take, for example, Deep Blue, the IBM world champion chess playing machine.
Yeah. It's
really the ingenuity and the intelligence of the programmers to figure out how to use a computer to play a good game of chess using, the brute processing power of computers. So the field of AI really has been, and still is to a large extent, narrow AI.
Yes.
And so when I started becoming interested in AI, I realized this, and it was quite shocking, actually. So around about 2001, I found some other people who were also interested in going back to the original ideal, the original goal of AI, to build thinking machines. And in 2002, we decided to write a book on this endeavor. And so three of us came up with the term artificial general intelligence. Yeah. And to me, I particularly like the G in there, which is like in psychology, you have little g, which stands as a measure of intelligence, IQ or general intelligence. So you really want to have a computer system that can learn anything, really, that a human can learn or more. So that hasn't been specifically built to solve one problem or one set of problems, but that can hit the books, can think about, can reason, can learn by itself and innovate and come up with new ideas, can be a researcher or whatever, really any human cognitive task. And so that's really what AGI is about, that it has the qualities that make human intelligence so special, the ability to form abstractions, the ability to learn, to apply knowledge you learned at one domain, to apply that to another domain, to have metacognition, to be able to think about your own thought process. So that is basically what AGI is about.
Okay, so I want to hone in on a couple things you said to help me understand this. Again, I'm coming at it from ignorant of the science and things of that nature. But so you said something like the research, AGI should be able to do research the way that a human does. And to me, I think that's already kind of happening with AI. Like the ChatGPT models, the LLMs are able to do not what a human can do in creativity, but in the processing of massive torrents of information. I do think it does it already, and it seems like it's been around for a long time, the concept, but this breakthrough in LLMs over the last couple of years seems to be putting us in that process. So, it's able, for instance, when researchers in the medical science community are doing research on Alzheimer's, and, if you're a human, you're reading through books, you're typing notes, but if you have an LLM to help you out, you can process torrents, massive quantities of information. you're not able to do before. And so while the LLM is not exactly doing the research necessarily, it kind of is, in the sense of it's like the most advanced research assistant in human history. And so I'm just curious what you think about that idea of, where we are right now, let's just call it, and the quality and appreciating that. Like, do you agree with that? And
no, I think there's a very important distinction to be made. And I know a lot of people say, well, surely we already have AI that does research, but that's not at all the case. It's a tool that humans use. A human always has to be in a loop to basically tell it what to do, what data to feed in. And that's very different from a researcher who has a goal in mind and can then pursue that goal autonomously, basically, and LLMs cannot do that now, and they will not be able to do that by the very nature of the way they're built. And one of the important limitations of large language models and statistical approaches, big data approaches, is that they are pre-trained. In fact, let me just talk about, it's called GPT. Mm-hmm. The G stands for generative. It makes up stuff. Yes. Literally makes up stuff. Now, that's not good for a researcher. It's been trained on 10 trillion pieces of information, good, bad, and ugly. And it doesn't actually have a way to evaluate what of that information is good and bad and ugly. It can't think about its own kind of
you have to do that.
Processes. Right.
The human has to do that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's
a tool.
It's generative. Yeah, it's a tool. Yeah.
Yes.
And then the P, it's pre-trained. It's been trained, $100 billion, $200 billion worth of training, but it's a read-only model that basically the model itself does not update, does not learn, does not adapt, improve. So if you trained a human assistant with something and they knew about scientific research at a certain cutoff point, and you tried to put them in a research lab, but they couldn't learn anything new, it wouldn't be very useful.
Yes.
So, the fact that they cannot learn in real time, or they cannot update their model in real time is a real handicap.
But humans can.
Yeah, right.
So what do we need the AGI for? Because it's just more tools for humans.
Well, okay, that's a separate question of why do we want AGI?
Yeah. Well, because if what you're saying is basically it sounds like you're making an argument for creating a human. Basically, because humans do exactly what you're saying in terms of, and now we have, so for instance, thousands of years ago, a big invention happened, the written word. And that allowed us to codify our knowledge and be able to look at it in a space right in front of us and to objectively be able to evaluate all torrents of things rather than trying to have just our memory of the concepts we could have. Well, so to me, ChatGPT is just another one of those on a much better scale, maybe, and I mean AI. So I'm struggling to understand what AGI would offer.
Okay, let me talk about that because it is profound, and I think a lot of people have made the comment the invention of AGI will be bigger than electricity, and really any invention that humans have ever come up with. And let me explain. I could give kind of three areas of where AGI will make a profound difference. The first one in research. Imagine you have one AGI that trains itself to become a PhD level cancer researcher, just for argument's sake. You can now make 1 million copies of that AI. Mm-hmm. You have 1 million PhD level researchers chipping away at the problem, sharing information, pursuing different ideas, communicating much more effectively than humans, working 24/7 without getting tired, with photographic memory, instantaneous access to all the information in the world, and being much better at reasoning than humans are. We're not actually very good at logical thinking.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
It's an evolutionary afterthought.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. So the amount of progress we'll make. I mean, when I was a kid, it was we'll cure cancer in 10 years.
Yeah.
And we're still 10 years away from it. We need a lot more intelligence to be brought to these to these difficult problems that we're facing. And, that's true for other diseases. It's true for improving energy, battery efficiency, pollution, and governance as well. We're not really very good at managing our own affairs.
Yeah.
It'd be good to have more intelligence, more rationality. I mean, rationality is the ultimate value.
Yeah, the human mind.
Yeah,
I agree.
And
is the ultimate resource.
And basically having machines that have abundance of rationality will foster human flourishing. So research is the one area, but I'll talk about two others to illustrate. The second one is, of course, the dramatic reduction in the cost of goods and services. If you can imagine any desk-bound job that you have, and let's say cognitive, let's leave creative, artistic, let's leave them, put them one side. But any cognitive task that's desk-bound, you can replace with AGI. You could replace it with, say, a $10,000 machine. Now, the massive reduction in costs of goods and services and the radical abundance that will bring with it is enormous. The third category I talk about is for each individual, for each human, and we call that a personal assistant. Mm-hmm. And the reason we have three personals is like three different meanings of the word personal. The first personal is that, in my view, these personal assistants, you should own it, and it should serve your agenda and not some mega corporations. I mean, right now, the sort of simple assistants we have like Siri and Alexa and Google,
sure,
they don't really serve your agenda. So,
yeah, they have their own purpose and goals.
Well, the company that's providing
that's what I'm saying.
Company providing it. Yes.
Yeah, and they have to provide a value for you though too. Otherwise, you won't use it.
Right.
But they do have their own goals to make money, basically.
Yeah. Ultimately, you are the product in most cases because you don't pay for these things.
For Siri?
Yeah.
Well, you pay for the phone.
Yeah, but not especially for Siri.
Okay, but I mean, I guess it's like I don't pay for the chairs when I go to a restaurant, but I pay to eat. And I hope to sit down, right? Like it's still part of what I'm paying. Like it's the value they're going. Or when I go to a nice restaurant versus a Burger King, like you're paying for the upgraded
Siri maybe is a little different there in terms of Alexa and Google Assistant. I mean, they use the information. There you are the product. I don't know to what extent Apple uses.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is a whole nother.
Yeah. Anyway, to get back to the value of having a personal assistant.
Yeah.
If you have an assistant that serves your,
which I agree with this, like a personal assistant, I love the idea of that.
Yeah.
For sure. Being just about me with my agenda directed by me.
Yeah. And the second personal is a hyper personalized to you, that it learns your history, your goals, and so on. And the third personal is the one of privacy, that you control what it shares with whom.
Yeah.
And so this personal assistant can not only do the dirty work for you, like dealing with the insurance company and stuff like that.
That'd be great. Yeah. DMV stuff.
But more importantly, it'll actually be like a little angel on your shoulder that can help you think things through and make better decisions in life. Okay. You might have made a decision that you regret because you didn't spend enough time thinking about it, or you weren't clear enough, or you made an emotional decision, or you didn't do enough research. But having this personal assistant, you'll be able to make better decisions in life and again, encourage human flourishing. So, I mean, these are just three examples of the value of AGI. It's, significant.
Yeah, I guess where I'm still trying to figure out is, as AGI, AI, let me, in my mind, AGI as a tool that enhances what solves some of the problems AI currently has.
Right.
So I think you identified, and to that degree, I like it a lot, right? It's solving problems. I think you identified 3 problems with today's generative AI systems. And this is, I believe, in one of your blogs or papers or white papers. So the propensity to hallucinate, the inability to update core model incrementally in real time,
right,
and the constant need for a human in the loop. So to the degree that we can decrease that and or eliminate, that's, I think, good. Now, the reason I say I think good is because I know enough about human creativity and thinking that sometimes hallucinations lead to results. Sometimes now I think hallucination in this sense is probably a little different than hallucination in the human sense, but just the idea of you're kind of daydreaming and then something hits and you all of a sudden you're integrating things that you didn't integrate before. And there's to me, the human mind and human consciousness is much a maze than any kind of straight line. And it's back and forth and up and down and left and right and yellow and depressed and happy and sad. It's all of that integrated into, that miasma. It's like an ocean of just stuff. And that's where creativity comes from. That's where new buildings come from, new scientific models. Let's integrate, biology with chemistry and biochemistry. Who would have ever thought of that? And how do we do that? That's a new integrate. And that's just in the sciences, let alone humanity, where I think we have barely scratched the surface of what human consciousness really is. I don't think psychologists really understand it. I think the poets were the best and closest at it. And they still, I think, were not,
Well, we can talk about that too. I tend to, when people say we don't understand consciousness, I tend to say, well, speak for yourself. I think there's a lot of understanding we actually do have, but we can come back to that.
Okay.
So, but let's talk about creativity.
Sure.
I think AI has already demonstrated that AI can be creative.
Sure.
I mean, it can create music, it can create new images, amazing, create videos, it can do that. What it doesn't seem to be able to do well, though, is to say what is really useful. And this is why we look at humans, we look at computer-generated stuff, and we then decide, according to our aesthetic, of what is valuable and what isn't valuable, or how to tweak it, But in terms of computers being able to create new ideas, I think absolutely they can. Now with AGI, the difference is why it's not the negative hallucinations that current systems have. With an AGI, it will know when it'll be able to put itself.
Yes, thank you.
It'll be able to put itself into that mode.
Yes.
Let me loosen the constraints.
Okay.
And just activate.
And that's AGI can do that, you're
Yes.
saying, theoretically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Can it do that now? Can your system do that?
Well,
Or are you working toward that?
not really our current system, because we've been focusing on commercial systems. You don't actually want them to come up with new ideas.
Interesting.
If you have, we basically have been focusing on replacing call center agents, and you really just want them to follow the rules, the business rules,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So you don't want them to be creative and say, hey, I know how to sell this stuff better
But you don't want the agents to be that creative either.
Correct.
Yeah, exactly.
Correct. They have a script.
Yeah, they have a script.
Yeah.
I've worked in those places. Yeah, it's very
right.
scripted. And,
Right. So our current system, it's not something we focused on, but absolutely AI can be creative, no doubt about it. Now, ultimately, can it create human art by itself? Or will there always be a different level of artistic creativity? I'll leave that open.
Okay. But so if it is able to do this PhD level million replicas itself and really master cancer, the nature and all the particulars and the nature of the human body and all the particulars in a way that humans can't, I don't understand why it wouldn't be able to do a Beethoven, level of creativity.
Yeah.
And one of the things I just want to point out of what you said about what AI is currently able to do in music and art and poetry, for instance. I've had it. Right. I even did a show on Robert Frost versus AI, where I took some of the themes of something and I tried to play around with the ChatGPT to see what kind of poem it would come up with in a certain, sonnet structure. And I used based on one of Robert Frost's poems. And it was like, in my opinion, it was like a 7th grade level at best. Like it was very beginner level, very,
Right.
not creative with its imagination, with its images, with its metaphors, with
Right.
anything, the structure, nothing is imaginative.
That's why I'm kind of hedging my bets in terms of,
I see. Okay.
sort of artistic creativity.
Yeah.
But as far as scientific things are concerned, being able to combine different ideas and trying to combine different ideas, it can do that tirelessly,
Yeah, and that's, you want to have that, I'm going to still call it a number cruncher, but advanced number cruncher. I know you have a different perspective, but yeah, and again, I think that's amazing and highly desired because we'll be able to solve many problems. We'll be able to break new breakthroughs in biomedical and longevity and just everything, space travel. It'll allow us to do all the things that we fantasized about for thousands of years, really, as human beings. I think it makes sense that there would be another breakthrough that AI currently, as impressive as it is for most of us, is not there yet. And we could all feel it and see it when we interact with it.
Right.
So again, to the degree that it can either eliminate or utilize hallucination, because it seemed like you almost said what I was trying to say about creativity and hallucination, where right now it hallucinates and it just spits out, like ChatGPT will just spit it out as though it's the truth. But it sounds like what you're saying, AGI, and what you're trying to work toward is that it would identify this almost as like, this is a hallucination, and let me expand out to use it or integrate.
Correct. Yeah. To do it consciously, to do it deliberately. Let's use the word.
That's what I would do as in a creative state, right? Is I would think, I might fantasize about something.
Correct. And there's actually, I think a lot of people already know about Daniel Kahneman and System 1, System 2 thinking.
Fast and slow. Right. Yes, that's great.
So where System 1 is sort of your automatic operation.
And he talks about art in is it that one? Or I'm sorry, I'm thinking of Blink by Malcolm Gladwell, where I think he talks about, do you know, have you read that Blink?
I've got that.
Anyway, continue. I'm sorry.
Right. So that's sort of the automatic thing. And, if you accomplish a driver, when you're driving, normally it's System 1. It's, you're not even aware of it.
Automatized.
You don't have to be aware of it. But then something happens. Something unusual happens, and then your System 2 kicks in. Your conscious control takes over. Okay, I need to think about how do I deal with that situation. I just missed the turnoff, or there's a construction or whatever. I need to do something different. So that's System 1 and System 2. Now, large language models really are System 1. They don't have the sort of second level that it knows what it's thinking or what it's doing. And AGI will have both level 1 and level 2 capability. So it'll be able to direct its thought processes appropriate to the task it's trying to accomplish. And some of them will require more creativity, others will require more logical thinking, and so on.
Okay, so well, first I wanted to say this earlier, so I'm just going to say, because you mentioned level 1 and 2 thinking and unconscious and conscious, or subconscious and conscious. And you're arguing that AGI will be able to activate both.
Correct.
In similar ways
it will have both. Yeah.
But the question to me again is, where do you see you? Okay, you mentioned this a couple times, but it seems very theoretical I think in your white paper, where you do talk about sensory perception.
Right.
So, because this to me is where AI is incapable of interacting with the world, is you need flesh, you need eyeballs, you need a tongue and taste, and you need smell, you need all of these things, including a body physically interacting in the world. So if you don't have those, how do you actually develop a consciousness similar to humans? Like, for instance, we know animals have some form of consciousness. We don't know exactly. I don't think we know fully how it all operates, but we know there's something. It's not like ours. Otherwise, they'd be able to communicate in some way, but they can't, because they don't have, that ability, obviously. But they have some kind of consciousness. So where's the level of the body and the senses in this cognitive AI system?
Right. So a couple of things to unpack here. The first one is somewhere in one of my writings I mentioned that my theory of AGI is the Helen Hawking theory of AGI.
Thank you. I wrote that. That's one of my questions. Yes. Tell me more.
So
about
what
this.
I mean by that is that I believe AGI, and by Helen Hawking, I mean Helen Keller, with very limited sense acuity, and Stephen Hawking with very little dexterity. So clearly you can be very intelligent even if you have very limited sense acuity and very limited dexterity.
Sure.
So,
for everyone, Helen Keller is blind, deaf, dumb.
Yes, correct.
But she still had touch.
Correct.
And she
touch
still had taste.
Touch was really her only...
Yeah, touch and taste, I guess, was it for her.
Correct.
And obviously Stephen Hawking, the physicist.
Yeah.
Now, Stephen Hawking did have fully functioning abilities until his early 20s, I believe.
Right.
So he did have that memory going into his neurodegenerative phase, which was in his 20s, I believe.
Correct.
So, okay, continue.
Correct. And it's not... it's sort of just a rough analogy.
It's a concept to help you understand.
It's a rough analogy that you clearly don't need full human sense acuity and dexterity to be very, very smart. So the systems we're building, the AGI systems we're building, do have vision, so they can see the world and they can act on the world. So I believe there is some kind of grounding and necessity to interact with the world. Now, we don't know at this stage how little of that grounding you can get away with. In terms of does it need to be three-dimensional, or is two-dimensional good enough? Can you extrapolate from 2 dimensions to 3 dimensions, and things of that nature. So there is some grounding required, but we ultimately for AGI we're not looking to totally replace humans in every way. We want the cognitive and problem-solving ability of a human. So can it learn the various concepts that it doesn't have? I mean, like Helen Keller could learn about what people could see, even though she didn't have vision. So you can extrapolate
in a limited way.
Yeah, right. But if you read her writings and how she analyzed novels and so on, she clearly had a very good understanding.
Oh yes, I'm not an expert on Helen Keller. I know the Miracle Worker play, which I love. The Miracle Worker play, and I've read snippets of her, so I don't know the extent of her contributions. But
right.
But I mean, just as an example, I know from research and discussions with people who were born blind, they don't even have a concept of black in the way that we do. Mm-hmm. And that to me is a fascinating understanding of the world. Of black,
on the other hand, sort of the other evidence is when you look at ChatGPT and large language models, it's actually amazing of how much they purport to know or seem to know just from language, even though they clearly have no senses at all. So it's not clear how little grounding you can get away with.
Yeah, but you do need a body, right? Don't you? In order to. So first off, you said you're not necessarily saying replace humans.
Yeah,
which is fine. I get that, but
you still are
saying you're still saying there's something about a consciousness you can develop. Right. And so let me get it this way. There's a consciousness you think you can develop through AGI. Mm-hmm. Is it human-like or human? And is there differences there? So you use the term human-like. I think AI right now is human-like. I think GPS
no, it's not at all human-like because it cannot learn interactively. It doesn't conceptualize. It doesn't have metacognition.
Yes.
So it's not human-like at all.
No, but that would be human. What I'm saying is AI is artificial. It's artificial. It's not the real human. It's our replica, our recreation of it to the best of our abilities. AGI might be the next step of that, but it still wouldn't be human.
No, it wouldn't be human. But
okay. So what would be the differences? Is what I'm trying to get at in your vision.
But between
AGI.
Humans and AGI, or
yes,
yeah,
yes. So because again, I'm saying there's human-like, which AI currently, in my view, is one form of human-like. I think a calculator is like we could do calculations in our mind, but it could just do it a million times better, a calculator. So it's human-like in the sense of extrapolating one thing we can do and just making it a lot better. It's a bicycle for the mind. Is same thing with computers. But I want to understand the difference between human-like and human in regard to AGI. So which one does AGI fit into? Human-like or human? And then why?
Yeah, I think you're using, well, it's clearly not human. So we can put that aside.
So why not?
Well, it's not going to have a human body. It's not going to have it's not going to have a gut feeling, for example, because it's not going to have a gut.
Yeah.
It's not going to have a heartbeat that races when you get excited. It's not going to start sweating.
So it is those body things that's
correct.
This is what, in my mind, the leap that was problematic for me.
Yeah.
But the way you're describing it makes a lot of sense. It's getting more toward the human, but it's just not going to be the human, of course.
Correct. Okay. So, I mean, to me, AGI, the definition has always been, it's the cognitive ability of a human, the problem-solving ability, the ability to learn, think, and reason.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's
and you're trying to just improve on that.
Yes,
based on
and to have an artificial being that has that ability to learn and reason and solve problems, but it's not going to be a human.
Okay.
So there's actually also another area that I think makes a useful distinction when we talk about emotions. What the broader spectrum of emotions, I tend to separate them into two groups, roughly. The one group I call cognitive emotions that are necessary for cognition. So that would include things like surprise, certainty, confusion, boredom. Those are necessary for an AI to sort of really have as part and parcel of its mechanisms, to be able to know when it's surprised or confused. Now, it's not going to have the same experience that we have when we surprised, but then humans have all of these other emotions, might call them reptile emotions.
Yeah,
reptile
fight
brain.
or flight stuff. And
correct. It's basically reproduction and survival emotions, and those would include like jealousy and love and hatred and lust and so on. Now, there's no reason to build those into an AGI. You wouldn't want to. It would undermine their cognitive ability as it does in humans.
Okay, hold on. So why do you think that jealousy, love, hatred would impede a human's cognitive ability?
Well, they do. They make us do stupid things.
I
things
understand.
That we regret.
For sure. But I also think that that's the route to wisdom and knowledge. So I would say that the mistakes you make, the flaws, the errors, the bad pathways, whatever, that is where you learn and improve.
Yes, but it's not that an AI isn't going to make mistakes and that it can learn from.
But those, what you're saying, like...
You don't need to make emotional mistakes to learn from them. You can, just make cognitive mistakes. You got the wrong information somewhere and you made a mistake. You didn't think about it in the right way, any number of ways. So I don't think that problem-solving ability relies on the survival and reproduction emotions for us to grow. I mean, it's an integral part of being a human. We can't separate those out.
Yeah, I guess I'm a little bit interested in the idea of it not being integral, or at least a part of our cognitive thinking about things.
So you see, that's a big difference. I would fully expect an AGI to be able to recognize these emotions in humans and to know how to respond to them. But there's a difference between being able to recognize them. Think of it like a good psychologist. A psychologist will be able to recognize your distress or whatever without feeling it.
Sure.
They can disengage emotionally. And in the same way, an AI will be able to recognize a full spectrum of emotions and learn how to appropriately respond or deal with them. But it's not going to inherently affect its behavior, outside of the sort of therapeutic or functional means, where it does for us. I mean, if we are very emotional on something, it impairs our thinking. It can dominate our behavior.
Yes, it can, but it can also direct our actions. And
often in a bad way. That's why we value rationality so much, that rationality can help us override inappropriate.
Well, okay, let's because you said earlier, like, governance would be one aspect of what you think AGI could help us with. Okay, so how could you formulate something like the Declaration of Independence without a love of freedom?
Well, we should be on the same page on that, because we believe that ethics itself is a rational, should be treated like a science. You should basically come to the conclusion, if the purpose of ethics, of morality, is human flourishing, broadly speaking, if that's the purpose of ethics, and you treat ethics as a science, then certain things follow. And individual freedom is one of the things that follows for humans to be able to flourish. So it's a logical conclusion that an AI should come to. It should come to the same conclusion.
But you don't think that integral to that conclusion is the love of controlling your own future destiny and existence?
No, it's a logical conclusion. For humans to flourish, flourishing is the goal of...
But why is it a logical? Why is the flourishing logical to freedom?
No, freedom is necessary for flourishing.
Okay, but...
So flourishing is a starting point.
But what about humans makes that integral? That's what I'm saying.
Well...
So they could pursue their loves and passions and desires.
Right.
And their thoughts and actions.
AGIs are not going to have their own motivation in terms of wanting to flourish themselves.
So what I'm saying is I can definitely understand how AGI and AI today can take an argument formulated by humans and understand the logic of the argument. But what I'm saying is, it sounds like you're making a claim that that AGI on its own could come up with the concept like, the Declaration of Independence, freedom on its own.
Yes.
Without love and interest and desire. And
yes, absolutely.
So that's where I'm confused is, yes, I agree that there's a logic to it, but the discovery was not, there's not an A-B, there's not like a linear line to figuring out the discovery of the importance of flourishing and as humans, because a lot of other philosophies have different views.
The importance of human flourishing is the given. That's the
But given. It wasn't given. It's a discovery. Someone had to discover and figure that out. Like for a long time, people did not think that all humans should be treated equally. That's not an obvious argument throughout history. It's a new argument. And it's the right argument. Okay. And it took us thousands of years to figure it out. But we always thought that there was, nobody liked to be a slave, for instance, but we understood that it was integral to actual flourishing in human existence. Like without it, we'd all die. So it became...
Well, you've just said that it follows from that. It follows. But it doesn't.
What I'm saying is it follows in retrospect, because we know this now. You could not have known this 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago. Like, I don't blame Aristotle, for instance, for not freeing slaves. He didn't have the context of knowledge necessary. So what you're saying is, yes, I could see AGI taking all that we've discovered, but you're making the claim, I think, that if we go back to the 4,000 years ago, AGI would be able to figure it out on its own.
Well, it's not omniscient, and we discover things partially because of experience of things that actually happen in the world. I mean, we do look at history, we look at experiments. I mean, at some point in my life, I also thought that communism sounded like a good idea,
Okay. Yeah.
Hey, just some of us born with certain skills, and, that, maybe we should contribute more than people who have less of those skills anyway.
Sure.
So,
you're saying the maxim from each according to his ability to each according to his
right.
ability.
There was
that sounded good to you at a certain point. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounded good. It sounded reasonable to me at the time, And you run the experiment and you say, oh, okay, well, I didn't think that
this would outcome.
It doesn't quite work.
And humans are humans; they're not robots.
Yeah, it doesn't quite work out that way. So yes, an AGI. I mean, in any case, AGI will have all of the history and the experience that we've gone through as humans.
Yes.
So it would come up with that. Now, by the time.
Because so what I'm saying is I think we're saying the same thing. I agree with that. I'm trying to get at this idea, like you're saying it could do it without, like it could come to the same conclusions without.
Much sooner than we would have, actually. That is a claim I'm making, is because it's much more rational. Things that we say in hindsight, well, of course that makes sense. And AGI is likely to have discovered that sooner, because we are not actually very good at coming to new conclusions. It's very, it's uncomfortable for humans.
It is very uncomfortable for many humans, for sure.
Right.
I agree.
So there is an inertia, and and as you say, slavery. Some people benefited from that. So, let's take politics right now. I mean, clearly, for any rational person, they have to agree that in America, the two candidates we have vying for president right now can't possibly be the best candidates for the job out of 300 million people or something. That has to be a rational conclusion. Sure. that can't be the best system. And AI and AGI would be able to help us think through of what the pros and cons of a better system would be. And once that better system is implemented, would be like the Declaration of Independence would say, well, of course it's obvious that we shouldn't have had this structure of selecting, the president, or the powers, or what power a president should have, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, in terms of objectivist principles, an AGI, I believe, would come up with very much objectivist principles.
Without Ayn Rand?
Yes.
Yeah, see, that's where I don't...
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
why I just don't see that at all, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
But how?
By reasoning, by thinking through. What are the logical... I mean...
Would they be able to understand the physical, real-world constraints?
Yes, absolutely.
How?
Well, I mean, we already see that in ChatGPT on how this relatively dumb system can already understand a lot about the physical world. You learn about it. I mean, the physical world in terms of, our bodies is one thing, but understanding the external physical world, there's no reason why an AI wouldn't understand the external physical world and how physics works and how the world works, how atoms work, how gravity works and stuff like that.
Sure. Yeah, and again, I think because humans did the physical part of it, right? Because humans wrote down really well for hundreds and even thousands of years, the explanation for why if you drop, a bowling ball from the top of a leaning tower of Pisa, it goes straight down. If you drop it from the top of a moving ship, it goes straight down. And it's like, why does that happen? It seems like it would move at a certain point. Like there's certain physics that, what's that?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. There's certain physics that now I don't know how an AI AGI would be able to come up with that without the humans having done it.
Well,
like how would you logically do that without moving in space and time and experimenting in the real world?
Well,
so you could synthesize, because everything you're saying to me, again, I love the idea of synthesizing the knowledge that humans have observed and experimented and did things like that. And this is a new tool, but it does seem like you keep making the claim that it would be able to do what a human could do.
Of course,
without the human.
I do, and you seem to agree with that when you're talking about cancer research, for example, to build on the knowledge we already have.
But I think guided by a human. But yeah,
you what?
I think guided by a human, but.
No.
I know you don't agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see where
this is where we have a disagreement.
Okay, why would human guidance be? Because then you are somehow believing that the AGI cannot reason as well as a human. If it can reason as well as
it can reason as well as a human cognitively in its mind based on the data given to it by humans.
No.
But how do you get data? How do you get
how does a researcher get that?
Well, they experiment on real things in the real world.
Stephen Hawking didn't. he came up with a series just by thinking about them for one.
Well, I'm not an expert on Stephen Hawking, but didn't he?
But in AGI, if experiments need to be done, then it can get humans to do those experiments.
Okay, so then the humans aren't. Yeah,
sure. Until we have robots, and then it'll get robots to do the experiments.
Get the robots to, yes.
So,
well, and to me, robot AGI makes more sense than in a computer because the robot is interacting with the world.
Right.
So like Boston Dynamics and what Tesla's
if that's easier for you to kind of wrap your head around, we can say,
for me,
once we have AGI, we can put that brain into a robot. It's just robotics itself requires some.
And then they can dissect things. They can like look into things. They can use microscopes to see.
But even a brain in a box in a computer can, you have remote surgery tools. You have, you can control. You can control dumb robots, basically. So you can interact with the world through external tools.
So it's you are acknowledging the importance of the senses and the interaction with the real world
for experiments. Yes, there are a whole lot of things
for experiments for knowledge.
Yes,
that's the whole point of experiments.
Yeah. But there's such a vast amount of latent knowledge out there when you think of all of the research papers that nobody has time to read or to really digest and analyze just by going through them, of how much knowledge there is out there that isn't being utilized.
Yes.
Because we don't have enough people that have the time or patience or motivation to actually harvest this, this information.
Yeah, and just again to repeat what I've said earlier, so we're on the same page here, I am very excited about, I'm going to just call AI broadly as a tent, including AGI, just the tool for me of being able to integrate mass amounts of data that a human is unable to do on our own. And that will allow us as humans and, cancer researchers and biomedical researchers and so on to be able to take that data and come up with new things, new integrations, new tools, new things, and even use the AI and AGI to help and even maybe come up with some of their own. But it's still, to me, always directed by the human. And one of the problems you put in here is constantly need for a human in the loop. Do you think, because you phrased it constantly in need of the human in the loop, are you trying to reduce the human in the loop or eliminate the human in the loop part?
So the ultimate goals that we want, like cancer research or whatever, and and the personal assistant will be guided by what we want to do. But essentially after that, it has to operate autonomously to a large extent.
It has to kind of find its own pathways.
Yeah, okay. Right. So it can operate autonomously.
Yeah.
Now, the implication of AGI, you can't beat around the bush. It'll be massive unemployment, because there'll be very few jobs where humans will be provide a better value, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that. I guess.
Well, it follows from AGI. If you agree with the description of AGI, it follows from that. I mean, first of all, any desk-bound job, any programmer, any accountant, any.
Yeah. No, I mean, like AI is already replacing jobs as it is right now.
Actually, it's generating more jobs than it's replacing.
But I think AGI would do the same thing.
No.
I know, because this is the crux of our disagreement, I think.
Right.
I don't believe it is really there's something special about the human consciousness and mind. And I don't believe that AGI is going to do that.
Okay.
It'll just be an amazing extra tool that's advanced. And, I really like your three problems: the propensity to hallucinate, inability to update core model incrementally in real time, and constant need for human.
Actually, the fourth one is the absurd cost of it.
Yes, and you did mention that in other places where the energy consumption of what it takes to do ChatGPT, for instance,
and 10 trillion tokens
is just enormous compared to the efficiency of the human mind.
Right.
So to me, you've identified, and other AI work people in the field are identifying core problems to AI as it stands.
Right.
So yes, the elimination and the reduction of those problems is immense value.
Right.
To any degree you could improve that incrementally or by leaps and bounds is a fantastic leap.
Right.
Because of the things that I've said, sensory perception, physical, the emotional, I do think that those are integral to learning and experience, knowledge and wisdom, not only about the world around us, which is the easiest thing I think for AI to replace, is our understanding of the physical world. But I definitely don't see it as an ability to understand the human world, which to me is infinitely more complex. And but again, this is someone who I'm very excited, I'm an outsider who's excited by your abilities to draw, to eliminate these problems.
Right.
But it's going to be hard for me to be convinced of.
Well, then, you really have to drill down and say, well, what specific tasks can an AGI not replace in principle?
Well, I think I'm a little suspicious of the governance part, because I know there's a lot of philosophies out there that are, claim to be very logical. And I think they are pretty logical. And if you don't have enough of the, what it's like to feel pain, for instance, then, it may be logical that America, because of the thing you said, we need a revolution right now. Mm-hmm. But if you don't take into consideration that there's no afterlife, that we only have one life to live, what's the level, like when do we decide when it's do or die? We're going to die for this cause. When do we decide to kill for this cause? Mm-hmm. When do we decide to hurt people, torture them for information? Like those are the kinds of things you need to integrate and synthesize in your mind if you're going to have a revolution, right? And on some level, you have to know that death and pain and misery and possible failure mm-hmm. is part of that process. And if you're saying you're taking away all of that from AI, its logic will not.
No, not taking it away. Remember, I said that it will be able to understand these human emotions and drives.
It'll be able to know about them. It can't understand it. I cannot understand what a pregnancy feels like. Mm-hmm. I can study it, I can analyze it, I can understand it, but the emotional psychology and all that goes into it, I can never understand it as a man.
All right, but
I can read poetry about it, and get a little bit as close as possible,
right?
But I'll never really. So my argument is that a computer can never understand.
But that doesn't just because you can't experience pregnancy doesn't mean, I'm sure it doesn't mean that you don't have an opinion on, whether abortion should be allowed or not. You take a logical approach to that, taking into account, how a woman feels about it, the psychology, and all the other factors. And an AGI will be able to do the same. Just because it can't feel those emotions itself doesn't mean it can't take into account the implications of them and the consequences.
Yeah, again, then it would have to be different people's opinions that are leading it to its conclusions rather than the real intuitive understanding of it.
Well, no more than the example used was pregnancy. I mean, you have to survey people, and women who have experienced pregnancies, women who've experienced abortions, and draw conclusions. Yeah, but
those are two different things. Like, so coming up with the political understanding of mm-hmm. the right to abortion, mm-hmm. I don't think you need to experience pregnancy to say that every individual, mm-hmm. you can come to your own understanding of this, that every individual has to have the right to their own autonomy over their own body and decisions over their own body. Mm-hmm. And that includes a man and that includes a woman. Right. And a woman has to have that. I don't need to know what it feels like to have an abortion in order to know that. Yes, I agree with that. But what I'm saying is there's something about the experience, like, so my argument is about the experience of that as such. If without the experience, there's a whole realm of decision making that an individual will make that will lead them to, the kinds of decisions they make in the world. So, yes, I agree with you in the sense that I don't need to experience pregnancy in order to understand the right to abortion, which I agree with. Right? I don't think I need to experience that, but I do think you need to have some kind of experience to understand when it's, good and bad for you to do that on your own. Mm-hmm. So the political right to do it is one thing, but for you to make that decision, for a woman to make that decision, for herself, that's another thing. And you need to be an individual human experiencing in order to do that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay.
But I still don't see what jobs, there may be, of course there are jobs where we may prefer to have humans do it, like teachers. We may prefer to have our kids taught by humans, at least to a certain degree, even though the robots could do a much better job of it. But we may still want to have humans as part of the curriculum.
I just don't know how they could do a better job of it. Because, like I said, how they don't understand what it's like to be a child.
Oh, I mean, currently teachers do a terrible job.
I didn't say they do a good job. I agree that parents tend to do, or teachers and parents tend to mess up more than anything. But that's part of the human experience, by the way, is the improper education and emotional, problems that can happen from parents and teachers to children.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, teaching is already one of the areas where even systems like ChatGPT are starting to make inroads.
Well, so again, this goes back to my original premise of I agree, and I think it's exciting for me that what ChatGPT is able to do and what AGI, as to the degree that it solves those 4 core problems you identified. What it'll able to do in education, for instance, is personalize things. So you could have a subject expert teacher who maybe gets to know less students or some of the students, and then ChatGPT or something could help personalize. Yeah, and I think there's a lot of values in that. I don't see the jump that you make in terms of it replacing humans in the core function of the human imaginative, creative, thinking, unique mind that is a human. That I just cannot put my head around yet.
Yeah.
But I'm, again, like a lot of the stuff I'm super bullish about.
Well, you should think about which professions, if you have an AGI that can think and learn and reason better than a human, what jobs there are that you would prefer to employ.
Well, the direction of them, for one.
Sure, but how much of our time does that take?
Oh, I don't know. I think it could. This is something that is unfathomable to us. I can never say that word. And unfathomable. So I believe there will probably be whole new realms of things opened up, just like AI has opened up new realms for us to already take into consideration. So one person can, control SpaceX. So then you can have something bigger and better than SpaceX. You can have new forms of energy. We could be in different, realms. Maybe we're going to be explorers exploring the whole universe and integrate. I don't know what, it'll be like Star Trek where we're around, and that a big part of our job is going out and exploring the world, the universe. That could be there's unimagined things that we don't know what it'll be. And again, I still think what we'll get to is more of an understanding of that unique human thing. I think there's something special about the human mind that AI can replicate on certain levels, that it can, be like dentures to teeth. So it's good, but not quite as good as the original. It's got some great things to it. And that's that's just my view at the moment. And I'm hoping to be wowed. I'm excited about robots. I'm not fearful of any of these things. I'm excited by all of them. And I think they just open up opportunities for us to, individuate, focus on things that we want and the life we want.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things is certainly reducing the cost of goods and services will be a benefit to humanity. Having improved research, having research accelerated, that'll be a benefit to humanity. And having our personal assistant, almost everybody I talk to say, hey, when can I have that?
That I would love.
Yeah. So, those are things we can look forward to with AGI.
So why don't we end with what are the most significant challenges we face in achieving the true AGI, and how is aigo, your company, addressing some of those challenges?
Yeah, so really the biggest challenge in my mind in achieving AGI is that right now we have a monoculture of AI research. and funding. It's basically all about big data right now. The big companies have a lot of data, they have a lot of computing power, they have a lot of money. So that's the hammer they've got to everything. They try to make everything look like a nail. But it's fundamentally on the wrong track. I mean, the chief scientist at Meta, Jan LeCun, recently said, large language models are an off-ramp to AGI, a distraction, a dead end. That's how strongly he puts it. And I totally agree with him in that regard. The current effort in AGI is completely misdirected. If you're trying to go north to get to human level intelligence, but you're facing that way, it doesn't matter how much money you throw at it, you're not going to go north.
But the money is going to go that way because it's making money right now.
Right, but that's starting to change where people like Jan LeCun says, look, we're on the wrong track. He's actually he's giving advice to students who study AI. He says, don't study large language models. That's not where the future is. Yeah. So we are seeing a shift in that. There was a recent report as well with people saying this is a bubble that's going to burst. The amount of money that's being invested in generative AI, we are not seeing the returns.
There's a limitation to what LLMs can do.
So as soon as we start seeing a shift of people looking at another way of doing it that's closer to the way the human mind works, the 20 watts and 5 or 10 million words before we can get language. I believe we're going to get AGI soon. I believe could be less than 5 years. Now, our own company, we've just recently, a few months ago, decided to put our commercial business on hold so that we could focus 100% on getting to AGI. So currently, the only real constraint is money as we see it. I mean, we have some problems to work through, some development things to work through. But really the constraint is not, in my mind, is not theoretical. It's not computing power. It's just having, we only have 10 people, 12 people in the company now. It'll take forever to do it with 12 people.
Yeah.
So we're looking to hire another 50 people to accelerate this development of AGI. So I believe we can have AGI soon, whether through our efforts or other companies that go away from the focus on large language models and look at something more like what DARPA calls the third wave of AI, which is cognitive AI. Your starting point is understanding intelligence. If you want to build an intelligent system, you really have to first understand intelligence, and that's sort of a cognitive psychology and philosophy endeavor.
Yes.
And then you have to have...
That's one of those things I think is another long conversation.
Yeah. And then you also have to have the computer science knowledge.
Yeah.
20 years ago, cognitive science was a big topic. You don't really hear about cognitive science anymore. Cognitive science is basically the combination of philosophy, cognitive psychology, and computer science. And we need more people having that perspective on AI, the cognitive science perspective. What is intelligence, or what is important in human intelligence? And then how do we build it? Not how much data do we have and how much compute do we have?
Okay. Do you mind if I ask one follow-up?
Sure.
Okay. Because I know we're running out of time, but because this is, I've talked to Chad Mills, who's a data scientist, and on this about AI and some of the stuff he does with that. And to me, this is all very fascinating. I've never heard of the applying the insights from, and I already hear people making fun of me for this, but the insights from the poets and the artists and those types of the applicators of ideas and knowledge and thinking about, especially particularly humans and things like that. And I'm just wondering, so you mentioned philosophy, you mentioned psychology, and what's the other one? There's
computer science.
And computer science, those three, fields. But if you're trying to replicate humans, and if you look back at human existence, I think all the great improvements happened in the arts. They are the ones who see things first. They don't know how to do it, but they show the way in in many ways. And even when it comes to things like perspective and understanding, and that's something that, and so it seems like maybe you need to add the arts into that. Because if you're going to train a human, you want to train them in the arts, as well, at least on some level. You want to include the arts, the sciences, math. And so if you're going to train a human-like model, why wouldn't you include poetry? That's what I'm here to advocate for, the poetry.
Well, it's one of the first things they did in ChatGPT,
That you did? Or that they
No, ChatGPT. What they did is basically, can you write me a poem in the style of some Bob Marley, or
Okay, so this is my okay, I'm sorry. This is my problem. I have nothing against Bob Marley.
Yeah.
But Bob Marley is no Coleridge.
Right.
He's no Keats. He's
okay, I shouldn't.
So like, no, but what I'm saying is, like, when people use the example of the arts, they're using, like, in the history of art, in my view, the quality of the last 100 years is here versus back then it was here. Just the overall quality of it. Like, these are just, like, and so and especially that they created, like, Bach creating something new that was just profound and unique and new integrations. It's like what we're doing now is just like, the thimble or like a little bell. It's it's the most primitive quality of stuff. So what I'm saying is, like, why not teach them, like, if you're going to see the quality of ChatGPT or AI or AGI, don't ask it to do a Bob Marley. Tell it to create a new form of literature, and do it on the quality of, a Melville, a Rand, Dostoevsky.
You can be our advisor on that.
I would love to, if AI
project when we
people
get
want
there.
something to do with the arts. That's what I'm interested in. But either way, like, I mean, there's lots of the poetry and the arts is one thing that is oft or just as codified or more codified than as science is, and it seems like that's a good thing to kind of train, AI on.
Yeah.
That's all I'm just advocating for. I want to train kids and adults on the great canonical works of the Western world. I think AI should be just as trained.
Interesting thought.
That's my own.
Yeah. I mean, to me, art has really been sort of science fiction inspired stuff for AGI.
Which is important.
Yeah.
For sure.
But it's an interesting thought. I hadn't really considered that.
Okay. Well, there you go. Boom. It's done. It's going to happen. The poetry, we're going to teach the AGI to write a Wordsworth poem.
All right.
Okay. So any last thoughts, Peter, before we leave?
No, I think hopefully I managed to get a few more people excited about how beneficial AGI can be. And, anybody who wants to help us make that happen in whatever way, spreading the word or writing us a check or whatever,
sure.
You know where to find us.
All right. aigo.ai.
Yep.
Great. Okay.
Right.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.